International Business Machines, IBM, which this season has brought you Town Meetings of the World, CBS Reports, the National Health and Citizenship Tests, tonight presents Broadcast 14 in this distinguished series.
I was dust, and I was inside the earth. Huge boulders, just bombarding, but I could feel with my eyes.
These strange images and sensations are part of the experience of the drug called LSD. But this scene shows LSD as it looks and sounds far from the glare of the headlines, in serious medical research. LSD, the subject of a Senate investigation, the same drug that has been condemned as a social menace, as a source of delusions and aberrations, of kicks that often end in disaster. To science, it is all this, but also something more, an uncharted tract on that farthest of all frontiers, the human mind. Here is Dr. Stanley F. Yolis, Assistant Surgeon General of the United States and Director of the National Institute of Mental Health.
LSD, it must be pointed out, is an extremely potent drug. 100 micrograms, which is an infinitesimal amount, really. It's roughly 1/30,000,000th of an ounce, can affect very, very startling changes in an individual. And so it is, from the public health point of view, a dangerous drug. On the other hand, it's because, again, of its potency, it's an important drug in terms of research into the treatment of mental and emotional disorders. And for that reason, I would encourage as much controlled investigation by responsible investigators of the effects, the chemistry, the uses of LSD as a drug.
This woman is one of the principals in a controlled scientific investigation of LSD. She is Mrs. William McGinnis, a Baltimore housewife in her late 40s, a former art teacher with a son at college, a married daughter, and a grandchild, a month-old girl whom she hasn't yet seen, because at this moment, in October 1965, she is a patient at a state mental hospital in Maryland. This man is also one of the subjects. He is Arthur King, 33, father of 3 boys, and in October 1965, a patient in the alcoholics ward of the same hospital. King and Mrs. McGinnis are among some 500 people who have been treated with LSD for emotional disorders in research projects sponsored by a federal agency, the National Institute of Mental Health. Their experience, extraordinary as it is, bears little resemblance to the headlong adventures and misadventures reported in recent headlines. It was undertaken not for kicks, but in search of the help they desperately needed. It took place in a modest white frame building called Cottage 13. In this broadcast, we will follow the quest and the trial of Arthur King and Peg McGinnis, the experiment and how it affected their lives. We will follow it with the open-minded but questioning attitude that reporters must assume toward a subject like the hazardous, provocative drug called LSD.
CBS reports LSD, the Spring Grove experiment, with Charles Kuralt.
LSD, lysergic acid diethylamide, a chemical compound, an accident of research. It resulted from a Swiss chemist's experiments during the 30s with medicines derived from a plant fungus. It proved easy to make, incredibly potent. A single ounce contains 300,000 doses, each dose drastic in its effects. In these pictures and this music, researchers have tried to reproduce the eerie effects of LSD. This is an excerpt from a psychological research film. This fantastic imagery, forms merging into other forms, boundaries dissolving, this is a crude facsimile of the experience described as psychedelic, mind-altering, which turns the senses inside out. Sounds may be seen, and colors heard. Words, ideas may be felt. Science has its own descriptions. LSD, it suggests, alters the chemistry of cells in the brain, alters it in a way that exposes the mind to shattering impressions or to guidance. Memory can be pried open, buried feelings released. With LSD, some psychiatrists say, they can reach and perhaps restore disordered minds. This is a mental institution, Spring Grove State Hospital in Baltimore. It is one of 4 places in the country where research on LSD treatment continues under federal sponsorship, continues in spite of the cutoff of supplies by the one licensed manufacturer. The project is limited, experimental. Of the 2,500 patients in Spring Grove at any one time, only 6 or 8 are being treated with LSD. Not as a cure in itself, but as a tool of psychotherapy, and only after weeks of testing, briefing, consultation. It begins like this.
When were you admitted to the hospital?
It was about 5 weeks ago.
What type of admission was it?
It was not voluntary. I was committed.
I see. And who actually brought you to the hospital?
My husband and 6 policemen and 3 police cars.
In the autumn of 1965, Mrs. Peg McGinnis is being screened for possible LSD therapy after a severe mental breakdown. She has progressed just far enough to understand her own symptoms.
About 4 years ago, as I recall, something seemed different in my life. And I'd been happily married and always busy and productive. And I was teaching school, and I had 2 teenage kids. And something seemed empty. I couldn't put my finger on it. And so I discussed it with my husband, who is very busy and was very busy, and so he didn't take much account of it. And I said I felt he was ignoring me. And I was dramatic and said I would leave him if he didn't pay more attention to me. And I distinctly remember this. It was around October. So he said, all right, I will try to pay more attention to you. And then in February that year, I left him the first time. It was just a gesture. I took off and real dramatic. I went to Hagerstown, which wasn't far. And I was gone a couple of days. And I called him and he said, please come back. And I said, well, I don't feel important in your life anymore. And talking with other ladies my age, it seems a lot of them felt this way, even though I was very busy, plenty doing. And I didn't think it was sickness. As a matter of fact, when I was admitted over here, I didn't think it was sickness. I thought he was sick, and I was well. Well, that kept on for about a year and a half, maybe even 2 years, often at times of feeling that there was something wrong with my life. Things weren't turning out the way I'd expected. I don't mean fairy book stuff, but really, yeah, I felt odd and kind of empty. And so my husband said, well, then I decided, well, if he's different toward me, there must be somebody else. And so he said, well, if you think there's somebody else, and of course he declared there wasn't anyone else, if you think there's somebody else, come up with something. Of course, I thought then he was meeting I wasn't sure it was one girl or several girls on the side. First illusion that I had was one time when I followed up a license number from a car, and I went to this particular house, and my daughter was with me, and it was a little neighborhood with all little square houses and the flowers, and this one address was very morbid looking. Grass up high, windows, blinds drawn, and I thought, a rendezvous, and here I am. And no one answered. The door was ajar, but no one answered. It was real spook stuff. And I thought, well, it must be something other than just having an affair. There must be some illegal mess that he's involved in. So there's a lot to go into to tell you about the police, but the thing that really climaxed it was that there was a bank robbery in Maryland, and it just happened to be in the area where my husband works. I was sure it was he. And I was terribly concerned they was going to do something worse. So finally, I went to the FBI, and I talked to a very important person there, and he took me seriously. Well, I was convinced, and he took me so seriously that he called the agent in Maryland, and they dragged my husband, not dragged, but they arranged to have him go up, and he had to take a lie detector test, and he came through with flying colors because he wasn't involved, and the person out there had been so very nice to me and was most sympathetic and concerned because I was suffering so. Called me to tell me that my husband wasn't involved. They cleared him, and I said, he conned you.
Peg, do you have any trouble sleeping?
Well, I sleep fine now. But before, this summer when I was sick, I didn't sleep all summer. I was sure my husband was gassing me. That he was coming in through the attic or the water faucets or something. And I slept outside on the lawn. I slept in the car on rainy nights. And I didn't sleep one night through all summer long. By that time, we'd gone to a marriage counselor. The marriage counselor had suggested that we both be examined by a psychiatrist. I was still working on my proof positive that my husband was ill and needed help. Then, in working on that, I stumbled across family snapshots. And still working, oh, this will do it. And it appeared to me that there were images in there, in the family snapshots. Some pornographic images. Some other ones that seemed very contrived. My husband under my foot and real corny. Well, anyhow, and this was going to be the proof positive. When I had these, I called a psychiatrist and made an appointment for my husband, thinking he was indeed ill. Here was the final proof. And we could save him from his terrible fate. So we went to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist talked to me about 15 minutes, and talked to my husband, and then he handed my husband the papers for me. And along came 3 police cars, and 6 policemen, and my husband. And I didn't panic. I thought, well, that fool, just look what he's doing. And I knew they'd come for me. And I insisted that the policeman show me the papers. And all I saw was the first sentence, and it said that I was insane. Shocked. And I was.
At the same time that Peg McGinnis is starting her course in October 1965, Arthur King is also being interviewed at Spring Grove to see if LSD might help him. Otts, as he is usually called, is a college dropout who twice got to the eve of final exams and then got drunk instead. He also drank his way through the service, a succession of jobs, and a series of half-hearted cures, with no results but a growing sense of defeat.
Well, I was living with my family, my wife and 3 children in South Baltimore. I'd been drinking quite heavily right before I came into the hospital. I went to the family doctor, and he gave me some pills, and he asked me to go home and take them and just relax. And I told him I was afraid to go home. I didn't want to go home, and I wasn't going to go home. And he said, why? And I couldn't explain why.
Is there anything in your mind associated with those couple weeks just before you came to the hospital?
No, I'd been drinking on and off for years. There's nothing.
Nothing special was kind of happening in that.
No, when you want to drink, you can always find an excuse. It's either too hot or too cold, or if you have to, you start an argument with your wife and then go storming out of the house. But you can always find an excuse.
Always something. Huh?
It's too wet. You just dream up excuses.
Now, about when you were a kid, what was it like around the house? What was it like with your mother and father? And
well, we got along very well. My father was just a regular, hard-working individual. He didn't smoke, he didn't drink. My mother was approximately the same way, although I did see her smoke once or twice, and occasionally she took a mixed drink.
Was she the kind you could get close to?
Well, she and I were very close. As a rule, she didn't get along too well with the neighbors. There seemed to be a lot of arguments with the neighbors. But within the household, we got along very well.
Well, your own description of getting along with your mother, would you say it was real good or in the middle, or
I would say it was real good.
How do you get along with your wife when you're drinking heavy?
Well, she would argue with me at first, and then she gave up on that, and once she locked me out and I broke the door down, she threatened maybe to leave or something like that. That didn't faze me. I didn't care. It's not that I didn't care for her, it's just that if she wanted to leave, I just told her there was the door, go ahead and leave. But she stuck by me, and she hasn't left.
Otz, do you consider yourself an alcoholic?
Yes, sir, definitely. It's caused me a lot of trouble in the past, and it's hurt a lot of things that I wanted to do and didn't complete. Just dropping out of school the way I did, or messing up in the service, or maybe losing a job for no apparent reason, even though I was doing well on it. And that seems to repeat over and over. And at this point, I feel that I haven't really accomplished anything. And I'd like to start over.
All right, now I want you to take all 9 blocks and make this design.
The weeks-long process of preparing for LSD therapy includes a battery of psychological tests. Partly, this is one more check to screen out patients so severely disturbed that they could not be reached and controlled while under the potent effects of the drug.
It reminds me of can-can dancers.
Primarily, it is to provide a basis for measuring the impact of LSD scientifically. This is part 1 in a before and after record of intelligence and emotions.
I like living. The first thing that comes to my mind.
Right. A mother
Should let go.
The only trouble
It's time.
I wish
Time would go faster.
men
Are hard to understand.
okay. I suffer.
Less now than before.
What's the main theme of the book of Genesis?
The creation of the earth, of the world.
Who wrote Faust?
Goethe.
What is ethnology?
Ethnology is the study of the meaning of words.
There is no passing or flunking this test. The question that really interests some researchers is this: will Ott's IQ score change after he has had LSD? They've been struck by the fact that in many cases there is a notable improvement, a greater facility to remember or to reason. But why, they cannot be sure. It may be the drug, it may be the psychotherapy that is the basic part of the treatment at Spring Grove.
Okay, Peg, let's try to put together what we know now. What the situation was like in childhood. Your father was really
Psychotherapy, the talking cure derived from Freud. The patient freely associating ideas, dreams, memories under the guidance of the therapist until underlying conflicts are identified, brought to the surface, and faced directly. The therapist is Dr. Sanford Unger, a psychologist trained in the treatment of mental disorders.
Vowed to be strong and not to need. And this was your image. Okay. Now, think back to the time when you're married now to Willie, and I guess Cammy and Bill are born. You know it.
Okay.
What did you think of yourself?
First word comes up. First word is fake. Not consciously. That's the first word that came up.
Now, do you feel you felt this back then?
I may have. I don't remember that I felt that way. So it may be that I feel that way now, knowing that I was afraid and it was paper doll house. My father used to call me a faker. Just remembered it. When I was little. I used to spell it F-A-K-I-R. To my favorite faker, he wrote in a book once.
What was fake?
I don't know. Because I didn't, The person I'd created. That was fake.
The perfect world,
Yeah, sure.
the storybook family.
Yeah.
Peg, are we playing a game now?
No, hell. Mm-mm. It's hard to make like real. Is reality good? Is it?
Well, I don't think a question of reality being good or bad.
Why does it hurt?
I mean, why does it hurt to look and face something that...
To feel it. Without any of the contrivances.
Tell me more about what you're thinking.
'Cause it's ugly. I don't know. I'm saying what I honestly think right this minute. Reality is without beauty. Is it? I don't know. This is what I feel.
My relationship with other people is not a close one, as we've discussed before. It's more of a loner type of thing. And yet I like people. I want to be around people. I want to be a part of them. But I don't feel deeply towards them. I try, but I don't.
Has there ever been anyone you have felt deeply close to?
Well, certainly my children, my wife.
But you do feel then not apart from them, not alone?
I feel a part of them, but maybe I don't always show them as much affection as I should. I make the attempt, but...
it doesn't come off.
It doesn't, right, that's it.
And it leaves you again with this sense of isolation.
Right. That's it exactly.
Now, actually, I'll be going over everything that may possibly be surprising, frightening, or in some way or other make it difficult for you during the LSD day, so that you'll know about it, so it won't surprise you. In this sense, it won't frighten you. You'll know it's not unusual or unnatural.
It takes 15 hours of this intensive probing, an hour or two a day, before Peg will be ready to confront her own problems, the fears she has carried since childhood, under the different light, the strange dimension of LSD.
There may be moments when you feel as if your own boundaries are dissolving, as if somehow you're merging into the universe.
Is it like dying?
This is not like dying, but you may feel, in fact, that, my God, I'm dying.
Oh, I felt that before.
Well, if you feel this way, die, Peg.
Yeah.
You're not dying.
But
And
I
as a
wouldn't be
matter of
afraid
fact,
of that. I felt it before.
if you feel that you are dying, also know you'll feel reborn.
LSD, the Spring Grove experiment, will continue after this message. LSD, the Spring Grove experiment, continues.
LSD Day in Cottage 13, a building on the grounds of Spring Grove Hospital. Closer to faith healing than medicine. The religious tone, the furnishings, the music that will be played through stereo earphones, all are explained as conditioners, measures to calm and reassure the mind that is being made sensitive to all impressions, that is suddenly exposed to chaotic sensations.
It's one thing to be a scientist, to be objective, detached. It's another thing to be a therapist. Psychotherapy is a human enterprise. It's in contact between humans. This is an intimate situation. One is exposed in a way that otherwise would never occur. There can't be distance or so-called objectivity. The commitment to a patient is perhaps the prerequisite ingredient.
When I had first looked at one of the pictures, my son became alive in the picture, and it frightened me. There was actually a hair in the back of his head that was out of place, and I pushed it down, and then I felt that everything was all right and that he could go out and play if he wanted. That was the feeling that came over me. The rose that was placed in front of me at times appeared to be very bright, alive, open, full, maybe breathing at times. At other times, when the doctor asked me about, well, let's get out of here, we'll go down to a bar and have a few drinks or something to that effect. And then he said, would you look at the rose? And when I looked at the rose, it shriveled up, turned black. Even the fern around it fell over. The rose was dead.
It's really pulsing.
Is
it ever pulsing? Wow. It's closing and opening.
In the same building, on another day, Peg McGinnis begins the 14-hour trial under LSD.
Straighter. Stronger. Shut up. No, I don't know which.
No, I wasn't going to say.
I thought you were going to say lie down.
No, I'll tell you when I say lie down, and then we don't talk.
All right.
What I want you to do is look at the rose.
If I want to.
If you want to. And let the agony and the hurt that was in you during these years past flow out into it. What happens to the rose, babe? When it takes on your agony that was past?
It's beautiful as it opens. I just have to tell you about when I feel like I have no air, don't I?
Now, it'll pass if you don't focus on it. You'll go right through it.
Shut up and listen to music.
That's right. Be relaxed and stop thinking.
Sleep?
Sleep, that's fine.
I'm really afraid. Jesus Christ. I don't know of what. but boy, am I afraid. I could tell you 100,000,000 things I'm afraid of. They're all sharp.
There were thousands of visual patterns of fear. And the first was not breathing. I was enclosed and I died. I was terrified right through. Afraid of being thirsty, afraid of being alone. And I wasn't just alone for a little while. I was alone for 1,000,000,000,000,000,000 years.
Did you look in the mirror?
And then I was afraid of what time brought. And I was pockmarked, hideous, ugly, cobwebs and ugly and old and older and older until I was just bones old. I can tell you about women. They think there goes beauty, there goes love, and they're scared to death. I looked at the pictures and I saw myself in that child and my daughter with a hurt, scared.
Let's go.
And then I started to work my way up through solid rock. And I just broke through.
Let it come. Get all the grief out. All the hurt, all the guilt. Just let it come.
When you cry, you don't just cry for yourself. You're crying for your daughter, her daughter, and the ones that come. This is the tie-up with all people.
Get it all out, Peg, because this is where you're going to leave it behind. Let me be your guide, Ots. Just be. Let the music carry you. That's all. Get it out.
If you'd only seen Bruce, these people are real too. Mike, Bruce, Gary.
Ots, the battle you're fighting is one that's in the past. You don't have to prove anything to your mother now. It's to yourself. The place for you now is on the couch, letting the music carry you. Let it do that. Let this issue be, and it'll resolve, Ots.
No.
Just lie down. And let me back in. I can help.
No.
Ots, you've taken head on the biggest thing that's bothered you. You've gotten it out in the open. Now just be.
Right, my friend?
Right. I want you to be as relaxed. Not to think. Just to be. Put the eye shade on.
No.
Ots, don't keep me apart. Let me in. You're not alone. The conflict is in you, Ots. Give up to it, Ots. Ots, I want you to remember yesterday. when we went over instructions for this. Enough figuring out for now, Arts. Surrender. You surrender.
Good God.
There was, at one time, a laughter that broke through, and I think it was the best laugh I ever had in my life. It was just tremendous emotional release, and I really felt wonderful at that time. It was just terrific just to laugh. At the end, I felt a great weight had been taken off of me. Instead of feeling like it was the end of something, I felt like it was the beginning, like it was something had opened up and things could be seen in a different light.
What does transfiguration mean?
Rebirth. You feel transfigured?
No, I feel reborn.
Evening. At the end of a strenuous 14-hour encounter between a patient and his own inner feelings, Cottage 13 becomes the scene of a family reunion. Otts and his wife, Jean.
I've been here.
Oh, were you?
Hmm?
My family.
She all right?
Yeah, fine.
Would you like to tell me then?
You wouldn't believe it.
No, I don't think I would.
I feel beautiful.
All right.
I feel squashed with beautiful. That is exactly the feeling of I kept saying, all right, so I'm squashed. From the side and the top, and then when you're, you still come through, there's a piece of you left. Most amazing experience, and I found God.
What did you say, girl?
I said I found God.
You know, it only comes after you find yourself.
I found a great big hunk of creation.
One week after this, Peg McGinnis was released from the hospital. By that time, too, Arthur King had left the alcoholics ward and gone home. The experiment at Spring Grove, LSD combined with psychotherapy, as it looks so far to the scientist in charge, Dr. Albert A. Kurland, Director of Medical Research, Maryland Department of Mental Hygiene.
I've been involved in research activities for a great many years now. And the behavioral changes, the thinking changes, the effect upon the mind, mentation, the feelings and emotions, the rapidity with which this thing works has been one of the most dramatic experiences that I've ever observed. Now, on the other hand, what the ultimate therapeutic meaningfulness of this will be is something that I don't know. I'm intrigued, I'm impressed. But I also am aware that this requires a great deal of study. Right now, the only thing I can say that it appears promising, but this may be based on my own enthusiasm, and so I would be somewhat suspicious until I had a lot more data.
There is some data on Peg McGinnis and on Arthur King. Their own stories, their own feelings, 6 months after LSD.
LSD, the Spring Grove experiment, will continue after this message. LSD, the Spring Grove experiment, continues.
6 months after treatment with LSD, 6 months after his release from the alcoholics ward at Spring Grove Hospital, Arthur King has started over. At the age of 33, he has gone back to school, something he talked about doing for years. In evening classes, he's studying accounting.
Which the largest borrowers can borrow monies.
Otz has a new job as an insurance examiner, but he says these are only signs of a more important change. Well, how have things been going since you came out of the hospital? Have you had anything to drink, for example?
No, I haven't. Nothing at all. And I haven't had any desire to drink anything.
How do you account for that?
Well, I think that before, there was always a conflict inside of me, and it had to be quieted down. But nothing's bothering me now. There's no buzzing going around in my head that's worrying me. I mean, the worries are all just the worries that everybody else has.
Did you get any insights into the very basic causes of that conflict you spoke of?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
What were they? What was it that was causing you to live such a chaotic life before?
Well, there were some specific attitudes that were inculcated in me by my mother that I no longer need. And I'm sure if she were alive now, she'd be the first to say so.
Well, what sort of attitudes, Otz?
Well, attitudes that I shouldn't be close to people. I shouldn't associate, that I should stay more tied down to her. And it's no longer necessary in any way. And I think I would have always remained a child if, literally a child in the sense of not being myself, not making my own decisions, not running the show myself.
Specifically, in what ways is your life different now than it used to be?
Well, at home, I feel more a part of things. In the neighborhood, I feel more a part of things. I can remember we used to sit around and discuss what was going to become of the kids and how I hoped that they'd become very successful, and I hoped that everything went well for them. And now when that comes up, I think that what's wrong with my becoming something? What's wrong with my doing things? I feel that I'm a person too, that I got a life to lead and a long way to go yet. And there's a lot to do, and there's a lot of enjoyment, a lot of things to say, and well, I just feel that, well, I'm a person too.
In the McGinnis family, this scene, routine in most households, represents a dramatic change. Peg McGinnis has rejoined her family, including the grandchild born when she was in the hospital. Peg has changed her hair color, but the most significant change has come in her relations with the members of her family. When you saw your wife just after the LSD treatment, could you tell any difference?
I felt that there was a vast difference in her reaction toward me.
What sort of difference?
Well, there was, I guess you can look at people and tell a difference in their look. But her look toward me was a look that I hadn't seen in years. And it was just full of love for me. And it was a wonderful feeling, because I'd been a long time without this.
When your wife came home after the LSD treatment, could you tell any difference?
Oh, golly, yes. I think that somewhere along the line, before she even took LSD, she knew that she was sick, but this didn't change what was going on in her mind about me until after she took the LSD.
When did you paint this picture?
I painted this the second month I was out. It isn't finished yet.
It is perfectly terrifying. Is that what you went through under LSD?
I didn't go through it. I was there. I was here and under LSD. This went on for 1,000,000 miles on both sides, and endless deep, and eternity onto, and it was just one of the fears I had buried, and it was a fear of being left alone. This is like a string of film, and I cut out one tiny block, but the string goes for 1,000,000 miles. This is just one block.
It's awfully hard to believe that an afternoon with LSD can change your whole life around. Is that what really happened to you?
Before I went to the hospital, I hadn't slept inside my house a whole night. I slept outside in the lawn or in the car because I thought I'd be murdered if I slept inside. I spent every waking moment trying to solve this terrible agony. And I cut off all connections with humanity. And what is it compared to that now? Now I enjoy life the way I should. And life it's so much fuller. I never dreamed, I didn't have the conception of what it would be like to receive love and to give love and to still be myself and not to have to earn it. Life is fine now.
Well, couldn't you get the same results from ordinary psychotherapy? Did it really take a drug to bring you to where you are now?
Well, I was given the words before, and psychotherapy is verbal. Understand? I was given the words, you are a scared kid. You are really frightened inside, but you've taken a lifetime to build a wall around it. I listened to the words, see? Now, in LSD, I experienced the words. I experienced it. All the fear that was trapped in me was released. It was hell, see, but I experienced it.
If you hadn't been prepared for it, if you hadn't gone through those weeks of preparation, would LSD have meant as much?
If I had taken LSD on my own, you mean, perhaps? If I hadn't had the surrounding and the confidence in Dr. Unger and the preparation, I would have been out there and never come back. I mean, if I was ill before, I would have been ill, it seems to me, beyond repair. Because the fear that was so deep, when it flourished, boy, it took over. And to a point beyond return. This is my own, not any professional, this is my own opinion. I would have been so frightened without the guidance and the trust and the preparation. It would have been a tragedy, horrible.
Do you have any desire to take LSD again?
Oh, no. Why? There's no need for it. Why?
LSD as science views it. Here is Dr. Joel Elkis, an authority on brain chemistry and director of the Department of Psychiatry at Johns Hopkins University. Let me ask you a question. We have just seen a patient of whom her husband said LSD simply changed hate to love.
Yes.
Is that really what happened?
Well, the love must have been there all the time. And the ways in which we often defend against love, which means an involvement, a real involvement, and therefore dependence on a person, is to withdraw or to change it to the other valency of hate. If you say it's changed hate to love, it is simply, the experience has simply brought the patient to a point where he can accept love and therefore the possibility of loss of love more.
But a drug did that.
A drug did that in a certain situation. A drug did it after very careful preparation of the patient, after work with the patient, which allowed him to realize some of the possible profound misconceptions which he's had about himself. So, in this respect, a drug is very useful. But do not give the impression that a drug applied to a patient will change love to hate, because if that patient had hate, I think what you'd see is more hate. This drug is serious business. But what has happened is that this drug has been used in open settings, that claims and extravagant claims have been made for it, which are applied indiscriminately in particularly young people who in some way seek an instant paradise. The facts are that we should take this drug very seriously, that we should by all means control it and make it available to serious investigators, but that we should not simply, by emphasizing the negative aspects of this drug, swamp the very important potential which is there.
What we saw happen here at Cottage 13 seems worth taking seriously in exactly the way that Dr. Elkis suggests, as a possibility and as a warning. 6 months afterwards, Peg McGinnis has been restored to her family, and Arthur King has already beaten the percentages on alcoholism. Within 6 months after the conventional cures, 9 out of 10 have gone back to drinking. Spring Grove's figures suggest that they are getting results about 3 times as good as that. But the statistics are so sketchy and so short-term that they don't constitute any sort of proof. Our own sample, of course, is too small even to add up to a statistic. We followed 2 patients, and both happen to be doing fine, which couldn't be better news, but which leaves out the far more numerous cases in which LSD therapy has produced no beneficial results. The point is that even with Peg and Otts, there is no miracle cure. There is improvement. And it isn't a drug that did it, but an understanding of themselves, which they achieved with the help of the drug, achieved it under the closest supervision, and only after weeks of intensive psychotherapy. The drug is nothing without the psychotherapy. It can hardly take the place of that process, that to so many people means years of probing. It is not, as Dr. Elkis suggests, it is not a form of instant psychotherapy, any more than it is a source of instant paradise. Yet something did happen here in Cottage 13, something that is still waiting to be explained, and it has to do with the potent mystery called LSD. It is serious. It is dangerous. It belongs in the hands of science, which understands the dangers, and yet also dimly sees the promise on that farthest frontier, the human mind. This is Charles Kuralt. Good evening.
CBS reports LSD, the Spring Grove experiment, has been brought to you by International Business Machines, IBM. The Spring Grove experiment was filmed with the cooperation of the patients, their families, their doctors, at Spring Grove's State Hospital and the medical and legal officials of the state of Maryland. CBS reports LSD, the Spring Grove experiment, was filmed and edited under the supervision and control of CBS News.